So Final Fantasy Tactics is a game that I've played, like the original, or as it's sometimes called, the War of the Lions, is a game I have played the first like 3 chapters of approximately 70 times. I've cleared that one village of bandits and brigands like a gajillion times, and yet I never seem to make it very far into it, and I can't explain why. I think frankly it's just the difficulty curve on it has always been a little intimidating to me. But I intend to try again with this newest iteration.
Hi, because we're admitting to our Final Fantasy failings, this is probably a show that has some sort of nerd crap, but when we're not talking about that, we're talking about the television series, The Big Bang Theory. That means you're obviously listening to the podcast about that television show, The Big Bang Theory. Hi, I'm Nick.
And I'm Kyle.
Kyle, I think it's a fatiguing game. I think, I love having so many units to, fiddle with and make sure I've got all of their abilities set up just right and all the proper equipment, etc. And right now, I'm still at the beginning of the game, and I've got about 6 guys, and it feels great. But I know before long I'm going to have 20, 30, and I'm going to be like, I don't have time for these people. I miss when we were just a band, when we just went on cool road trips together, not when we were a whole friggin' cult and I had to become team manager. That's what I find troubling. Or I don't know.
Ironically, I liked that. So I really liked the Tactics Advance game, and I didn't mind that aspect of it at all, but it was so much more... it just felt more streamlined. I don't know mechanically that they're that different. I think it's just that the advanced game, because they were like, this is for children, so we better make sure that they understand how job classes work and levels and things like that, so that they can figure it out. Whereas I am not to this day sure, although we'll find out, whether Final Fantasy Tactics the original actually explains to you how to change your job.
Kyle, we're not going to explain it later. We need to get into that this moment, because this is, I can tell you, blew my mind. My experience of playing Final Fantasy Tactics back when it was released in the late 90s, which I think also anytime you talk about an old PlayStation game, it's really easy to take for granted that any sort of skip between scenes, you're dealing with long loading times that no longer exist and make all these things so much more convenient. But that's important to mention, because the game's got to load up, and it loads the opening cutscene. You skip that, it loads up the music in the menu, you go through that, you make your character, you are dumped right into an introductory fight scene, which, fortunately, you've only got control over your main character. Everything else is autopilot. It's pretty soft introduction, and then you get to your first real fight. And I know this is not uncommon, because you're right, Kyle, it tells you nothing. And so it's just press the start button to start battle. And what has happened to me and countless others over the years who finally, became brave enough to talk about it with each other, is that you get dumped into that first fight with just your main character, confused, lonely, and then 7 bandits come and just beat the ever-living shit out of you in what feels like an impossible battle. And that's because it is. That's because you actually have 5 other people already on your team, but the game doesn't tell you that. It doesn't tell you how to put them into the map. It doesn't tell you that you're supposed to have them. It doesn't tell you what the job system is or how any of it works. The translation is bad. And so a lot of abilities, even though they technically have descriptions, are mysteries. And it's also one of those games where I don't know if it's so bad with Final Fantasy Tactics, but the Final Fantasy games, throughout, have so many bugs and, so many stats that just don't work. And I'm pretty sure the original Final Fantasy Tactics has a lot of stuff that, you'd be using it in-game based on what it tells you it's supposed to do, not knowing it's, harming you or doing literally nothing. And so I'm hoping a lot of that stuff is fixed. And all that is to say, when you get to that first battle, boy, I've never been more thankful for help and tip menus. I know all this stuff, but just to know that, the generational trauma has ended, was such a tremendous relief to see the game explain anything to you at all.
Well, good. I feel much more. I look forward to playing it on my Switch 2, which I ordered today.
Ooh, I'll have to hear all about it. People complain to me about the Game Pass system or whatever it is, and I'm just like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I see that new little icon on my Switch 1, and I'm like, I don't know, that's probably from the devil, you know? I don't need to touch it. That's how you end up going to people's mind palaces, is if you click the suspicious icon that you can't get rid of on your gaming system.
That is true now that you mention it. That is like a common, like, hey, this app showed up. Oh, I guess that's literally now that's not a bunch of things. That's specifically Persona 5. I'm thinking of. It's like this app showed up on my phone, and now I'm in another dimension. That's what you were talking about. That was what that was a reference to. I'm sorry. I just worked my way back into it.
You picked up on it. And you made it work. You know, I think that's also the case in The World Ends With You. But they had much more simple mobile phones. But it was also made in Japan, so their phones were still more futuristic than ours. Kyle, we've got to talk about the show.
All right.
Kyle, there's a Big Bear in this one. I expected them at some point to talk about the location Big Bear. They go to a cabin. I just assume it's in Big Bear, but I don't think they ever say so. I thought the whole thing was going to be a pun on the Big Bear location, and then that Big Bear actually shows up, and I think, I'm a fool. I was naive. I expected any sort of pun on that, and instead there's just the literal Big Bear, because this is the 20th episode of the 9th season, which means we're wrapping up number 9. Who knows what'll happen in between seasons that'll justify no change whatsoever until the next season. But for now, we are officially watching the episode titled "The Big Bear Precipitation," the official unofficial fan wiki summary, which reads: Sheldon spills a secret of Leonard's when the two take a weekend cabin trip with Penny and Amy.
Boy, does he.
Oh, yeah, which is, man, resolved too simply. Anyway, also, when Raj goes overboard with what the fuck? When sorry, when
it's okay, reading is hard. We all struggle with it.
Hey, okay, well, here's the sentence, you fucking bitch. Also, when Raj goes overboard with a fetal Doppler, baby presents in Bernadette's pregnancy, Howard and Bernadette must draw the line. It was fetal Doppler.
I immediately withdraw my criticism. That is, I mean, in the context of the episode, I actually do know what they're talking about, but if I hadn't just watched it, I would be like, I have no idea what that means.
Fetal Doppler, Kyle, was the issue. Piece of shit. So anyway, I guess there's one of those in this episode. But Kyle, I don't know. I feel like I feel like I want to assign one of the plots to you, so I don't have to talk about both of them.
I'm
but
happy
which
to
do you
do that.
choose?
Which do I choose? Yeah, I'll take the. Well, I was gonna say the A plot, but I'm not sure you know which. Like, it's
who knows? That'll be all the more.
I will take the one with Penny, Leonard, and those people.
Okay, the cabin.
Okay, should I start then?
Do what your heart tells you to do, so long as it is starting.
So the episode starts with a joke where Sheldon is wandering through the woods and commenting how nice nature is, but psych, it's really just VR. So his friends come in and they give him a hard time about like why the VR, which is frankly a little bit hypocritical of all of them.
Why don't you go outside, Sheldon? Why don't you touch grass?
Says Leonard.
Anyone in the show.
Yeah, but anyway, so then they all they convince Sheldon to go with them to Big Bear, and after much harumphing, he goes, and they arrive, and we immediately cut to the interior of the cabin where they decide they need to do something fun to pass the time, so they're gonna play Never Have I Ever, which Sheldon does not know how to
play this game.
Yeah, I mean everybody's played it at least once, right?
I don't know. I don't think I have. It's a game
that
I'm
can't be true.
Familiar with because of culture, but I don't think I've ever played it.
Well, I've played it. I mean, I'm not bragging. It's as they do a pretty good job of capturing just kind of how boring it usually is in the episode.
Until.
Right. So they're going around, they start off, with softballs, and then they decide they're going to tease one another a little, by, making the never have I evers highly specific to each other. And then, yes, I can't remember any of the examples that, they use, except for the one that, Sheldon jumps in with, which is, never have I ever kept a secret bank account hidden from my partner because I don't trust her with money, which is, of course, calling out Leonard, who it reveals has I think $6,500 or $7,000 stored in a separate savings account that he's been hoarding away because he is terrified that his wife would spend it all on well, I can't even say stupid.
I think just irresponsibly. She
just
says
irresponsibly.
She's bad with money.
Yeah. And she's like, but we're partners. We're supposed to share everything. He's like, and one of the most assholey things he's actually ever said on the show, he's like, what? Like your mountain of credit card debt? At which point she leaves the room. And then, they just they talk it over. And, it's not even, I don't even think they really resolve whether or not they're going to share the money. I think Penny just admits that she is currently unsatisfied with her current job because it involves way too much flirting with doctors in order to get sales commissions, which that part I bet that is a soul-crushing part of being a pharmaceutical rep after a while, or at the very least emotionally draining in exactly the same way that that kind of labor is emotionally draining. Although it does tie back in, now that I think of it, to a fun bit, which is the whole reason she's able to get the cabin for free is because there is a lesbian doctor who you never meet but who wants to get with her, and so she was able to trade a weekend at the cabin for a trip with her to an Indigo Girls concert. So that was a funny stereotypical joke, I guess. And then that's basically it. The button on all of that is it ends with them having reconciled, I guess, and then Amy and Sheldon playing Never Have I Ever in the room, but it's cute because both of them have basically never done anything, so they just bond over how all they're incredibly timid, boring people.
It is adorable.
But in a cute way.
Yeah, no, they had the better outcome because I think these games of revealing secrets, it was a coin toss as to whether or not this big fight happened. I feel like, it's always going to be either we have a really silly time and everyone breaks up, giggling, tickling, breaking boundaries because we've become so open with each other, or polar opposite, someone reveals the deepest, darkest secret that nobody ever wanted to share with anybody. And then you just have to sit with it and decide whether to retaliate. Also, I wish I don't know, this is one where I wish there wasn't an A and a B plot because I want to know more about the money problems. I wanted to fight more about it, and also, to Leonard's credit, when part of Penny finding out that he has the money is her being like, do you know how much that could mean to me? What it could do with that? And I'm like, God damn, Penny, you just found out about it. And you're already it's half spent already? What's your deal? And so I don't think he should have a secret account. I think he handled it in the worst possible way. Also, from that one reaction, I was like, okay, Leonard, I get it. I can see why this is a longer talk than maybe this episode is going to allow.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have anything insightful or funny to say about that, except that, yes, well, I guess I was just, when a man hides money from a woman, it's usually, because the man is controlling and abusive. And when a woman hides money from a man, it's weirdly still usually because the man is controlling and abusive. So, it's weird how that works, but that's basically it.
I don't like your negativity here. I'm going to find a really good, solid excuse to hide money from someone, all right? I'm morally righteous. Everyone's happy about it, yet I must keep a secret. But I do think you're right. Yeah, it's never a good look when it's like, oh, the person you love and trust most, they have a secret, or you have to keep a secret from them. Yeah, not a good dynamic. I guess we can move on to the other plot, which technically is more has more gravitas, and yet it's fine. It's with this baby, we've got the Wolowtiz and the Bernadette. Also, a conflict I anticipated that doesn't happen here is right at the beginning of their plot. It is, you see Wolowtiz on the couch playing a video game in his and Bernie's home, and Raj comes in carrying all these groceries or whatever for Bernadette, who is, growing more and more pregnant. And a fight that didn't happen that I expected the whole time is like, why, Wolowtiz, do you not take it as a given that you'd be like trying to like give more support to Bernadette while Raj is going out of his way to find opportunities to help? That doesn't happen. Instead, the dynamic is, wow, it's really great that Raj is going so above and beyond to help. Does he want to be part of a spiritual throuple that's having this baby? Which, to be fair, didn't expect it to go in that direction. Didn't think they were worried about sharing the emotional highs and lows of the pregnancy process, which I can respect. It's a very private and intimate thing. But that, where I was like, again, like first scene, I'm like, God damn, Wolowitz, again demonstrating that you do not bring value to this relationship. Meanwhile, it's your effeminate friend that you all harangue, who is juggling 2 secret girlfriends and helping your pregnant wife. Like, you better fucking step up, bud. You've got 3 seasons left to keep this shit together.
Yeah.
Oh, and then apparently the thing that goes totally over the line is when Raj, to show his support even more clearly, brings a stuffed bear that is 7 feet tall, I'd say, and at least 5 feet wide, which is pretty cool. But that's the thing that makes them go, okay, this is getting a little weird. But I think, they try to have a mature talk. They're like, hey, Raj, you're fucking freaking us out. Could you step back? And Raj is like, I get it. I see I've crossed a line. Whoopsie doodle. But then next day, Bernadette is like in tears thinking about how she misses the support and also the gigantic bear. And so it wraps up with Raj coming back. And again, like, things pretty much exactly where they started. And the fight not being, why isn't Wolowitz supportive, but isn't Raj so supportive that it's weird? I don't know. I've never had a child. I don't know how I'd feel if someone were trying to horn in on my child-rearing joy. I've heard about this thing where among doulas, there's a sect that considers themselves the more professional among the group and who look very much down on those who do not maintain consistent, like, basically charging practices. Or, they're like, hey, you're giving away your services for free. You're fucking up this market and you're making it harder for everybody else. And the slur they've come up for these other doulas is Oxytocin vampire.
That's such a nerdy slur, but I do get it.
No, it's apparently don't fuck with the doula industry. If you're one of those hippie doulas, there's fierce battling. But when I learned about this, I was kind of like, well, that's big business trying to squash the independent, right? But I also do wonder if there is anything to like, oh, look at those pregnant people and how happily they're coming together. I gotta get me some. I want to know what it's like to bring life into this world. Have you ever had that instinct, Kyle, to super duper wedge yourself into a pregnancy as the obvious caretaker?
No, I don't think I can say that I have.
You've had to find other reasons to find a 7 foot tall, 5 foot wide stuffed bear.
Correct.
All right. Well, we each have our own lives. Kyle, anything else to say about this bad boy?
There's got to be something, right? Oh, I guess I was just going to say, I do think they do come around to the thing you started with, which is that Wolowitz realizes that what he's really insecure about with Raj is not that Raj is horning in on the pregnancy, but that he is not carrying his weight.
Which is true.
Which there's totally room for both of those things to be true. But in this case, they decide, let him have this weird parasocial relationship to our child. What's the worst that could happen? I guess that thing in Twilight, that's the worst that could happen, where your
falls
buddy
in love with the baby.
falls in love with the baby and is
That's-
like, in
that's
18
always
years,
sucks when that happens.
I'm going to marry this infant.
I know so little about Twilight, and I'm just like, when someone falls in love with a baby, don't they? That's a big part of it, huh?
Yes.
Man, I was gonna say I've got to watch those. No, I don't. You know, that's one of it's. I go so far to check things off my list. That's not a list I even need to write. But yeah, so hopefully it doesn't fall in love with a baby.
All right. Let's leave it there. I have nothing more to say about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm glad that you've at least addressed one of mankind's oldest fears. That, okay, I love this woman, and what if she has a baby, and then it turns out to be hot? Which unfortunately does turn out to be a real problem that people don't talk about because it's so horrible. But then the idea of Twilight and vampires, it's kind of funny, right? It's kind of funny. I guess we should move on to things we actually enjoy that aren't this show and don't make us think about the fucking super bizarre, problematic plot points of the Twilight series. You know, I'm going to do 1.5 that I've got loaded up. But Kyle, do you have anything that you want to go with, or should I go first?
You can go ahead.
Okay. Here's my 1.5 then. I'm going to say 0.75 to each of these. The Final Fantasy Tactics remake just came out. I've only played it for a few hours. I bought it literally the minute it was released, and I realized it was very drug addict behavior because I wasn't like planning on it. I wasn't waiting for it. It's just one of those moments where it's like, oh, it'd be a shame if I didn't have anything to do around 10 p.m. the night it came out. Oh, how do I have that information, bro? I just came across it by chance. No way that in the back of my mind I've been piecing all of this together just to make sure I can get another taste of my tactics. But that's what I've done. And the reason it's 0.75 is because it's mostly the same game. They've added enough minor improvements that make it a bit more playable that I can enjoy it, while also not making any like big crazy changes that I think would offend any purists. That said, I'm kind of on the side so far of I could have used some more changes. Actually, I don't know. I think they do something cool, which is I haven't tried it. Allegedly, based on a menu selection at the beginning, you can also play the completely unenhanced version. I guess the OG PlayStation version. Maybe even with the original translation, which I think is the biggest change in this one I'm seeing. And a horrible crime has been committed. I yelled out at the screen when, in your introductory scene party, your squire that starts with you named Rad, who I would always do everything to make sure stayed with me the entire game because his name is Rad. He's my number one boy. Well, now his name is Lad with 2 L's. Fuck Lad. This game, you know, so 0.25 gone for that, all right? Rad lives in my heart. Aside from that, pretty good game. And then the other thing I'm going to recommend is a film I saw just last night, which is was on like a back of my mind list. And then I saw it was available on streaming. So I said, this is something I want to check off. This isn't on a Twilight list. And this is the film, You've Hurt My Feelings. Which, Kyle, have you seen this film? Heard about this film?
Maybe. Does it have Will Ferrell in it?
No. It does
okay,
not.
then I have no idea what we're talking about.
This has got your Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and I'm gonna look up when it came out. I know it's just the last couple years here. 2023. But I don't know. Like, and this is also 0.75 because this is a movie that I thought was great, and at the end of it, I'm just like, still kind of felt like it was missing something. But the the basic plot is that Julia Louis-Dreyfus' character, I don't think they ever say how old she actually is. I assume like late 50s or like early 60s at most. Her and her husband both. The husband's name, I'm not going to look up because the only reason he's a working actor is that he looks exactly like Tommy Lee Jones. I don't know how they did it, that Hollywood found a younger Tommy Lee Jones. Pretty sure he's a clone. Tommy Lee Jr., I guess, plays the husband. And so Julia Louis is a writer who has most recently released a memoir that was technically a success but did not meet expectations. And so she's working on her next best thing. And her husband is a therapist who, by all appearances, is burnt out and has actually started to become really bad at his job. And
can you imagine? Can you imagine a burnt out therapist who's bad at their job?
I mean, I've had therapists that I think weren't burnt out because they were bad at their job, you know? Like they should have been more stressed out. Instead, they're just like, fuck it, you know? You got feelings? I don't know. I'm going to go get a beer after this. But the plot essentially kicks off, which I guess spoiler for You Hurt My Feelings if you don't want to hear about like the inciting incident, is Julia Louis is out on like a couple's outing with her sister and her sister's husband. And when the sisters come back to meet up with the fellas at the store, they overhear part of a conversation in which the husband is saying to the sister's husband, yeah, like, she's given me over 20 drafts to read. I've read every single one. I don't think they're getting any better. I don't think this is a good book. And this is in spite of, though, what everybody does is he keeps telling her it's the greatest thing ever and it's going to be a tremendous success. And then she hears this candid conversation. And what follows from there is kind of every relationship dynamic that exists in the movie starts opening up to that insecurity of, have you ever actually been honest with me? Hey, I don't know how it is that everyone we know exists in a universe of creative people where we're not actually concerned about money. But tell me what you really think of the thing I've been doing the whole time we've known each other. And I won't say more than that, because then that I think would be to reveal too much. But it was great. I think the thing I liked most about it is that it's a really tight movie. And like, I mean, both time-wise in that it's only about 90 minutes, but also just like, you don't have extraneous characters. You don't have like just bizarre plot points that need to be resolved for no good reason. Like, they really focus on the core issue and play with it with everybody involved. And I think in a way that I would describe as like really elegantly and efficiently, which I enjoy. So You Hurt My Feelings or Final Fantasy, you know, whatever you're into. Kyle, your turn.
Well, I have another recommendation, but that reminds me, did you ever see the movie Force Majeure?
You know, I've definitely heard of it. Don't know anything about it, though.
I don't even I definitely watched it. I remember thinking it was kind of funny. They remade it into an American version. I was like immediately like, no, that won't be good at all, because part of what's good about the I can't even remember if it's like German or French or what. I think French, but I think part of what makes it good is just like they're all like European, so they're trying simultaneously to be like, oh, we're hyper bohemian and liberal and, you know, with our feelings, but also, you know, we're a bunch of sheltered man children in a way that works really well. But anyway, that movie starts out with a bunch of people standing like overlooking like the side of a mountain at like a ski resort, and there's an avalanche, and it looks for a very brief moment like the snow from the avalanche is going to like reach them where they are on this railing, and it's just going to crush this guy and his wife and their two children. And so the wife turns to her husband to be like, what do we do? And he is gone. He has turned and he has run away, and he is like sprinted inside. And so then it turns out actually it was fine. It was just an illusion of the way the snow was falling. But then the rest of the movie is like, what do we do about that? How do we feel about that? And I don't know. It's kind of funny.
And that was Force Majeure?
Yes.
Okay.
Not actually a recommendation, except to you, Nick. You might check it out and see if you think it's interesting.
And I'll avoid this American version.
Yeah. What I was actually going to recommend is I watched a movie that had been recommended to me multiple times, but it took me forever to get around to it. And that was Battle Angel Alita.
Ooh. How did you come upon that one, Kyle?
Well, I was staying with my friend Nick, and he was like, "You want to watch Battle Angel Alita again?" And I was like, "I have some tentative news about your use of the word again there, buddy." And you were like, "I cannot believe that after telling you for years how this is one of my favorite movies that you still have not fucking watched this movie. We're going to watch it right now." So we watched it, and you know what? Pretty good.
I can't believe you're recommending it. Like, I know you said that you liked it at the time, but also my greatest fear was similar to these "you hurt my feelings" conversations, that you'd be like, it was a serviceable cinematic experience, and that's not the case. And so I'm going to just sit back and feel this joy wash over me.
Yeah, no, it's a very, I mean, it's like in my head, I think what was the reason I was tentative to ever watch it is it came out, at a time of like anime adaptations where there had just been like no good ones ever, and every attempt by anyone to make like, a really big budget, like sort of faithful homage to an anime had just been terrible, or at the very least, just very meh. Ghost in the Shell comes to mind and other things, and it's just like there's something about even the more like, if not grounded, then more like photorealistic or like hard sci-fi anime that's just very hard to we struggle in the West to adapt the paradigm properly. And to be clear, I'm actually not sure whether, and I can't speak because I've never read the original, to whether or not this movie is a good or faithful adaptation of the anime and manga on which it is based, but I will say it captures a real spark of energy that we normally associate with like science fiction and cyberpunk in a way that I liked a lot more than other movies by people who I thought were really good, that were trying to do similar things, and it comes out better. And it's like, I was really impressed with like the level of the world building. I mean, here's an example. Like, this movie is set in a world that is almost sort of like just a carbon copy of the world from Elysium, in that like you have a bunch of people on the ground and they represent sort of the third world, the people living in the slums, and then you have the people living up in a cloud who you don't even know what's going on up there, but you assume that everybody up there is living in like decadence and luxury and happiness. And it's like, yes, it's like a painfully obvious metaphor for a class divide. But instead of making the whole movie about like the joylessness and toil of like living in like it's also explicitly post-apocalyptic, of like this like collapsed, like sort of ruined city. Robert Rodriguez, who directed it, had the insight, like, people live and have lives and have families and love and culture and joy, in like slightly suboptimal living situations all the time.
Yeah, it's not oppressive.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that like so much post-apocalyptic stuff does, is like, well, the world ended literally and now we're all just rotting. And this is like, well, the world kind of ended in a big way, but we still have to live our lives.
Yeah, people still got to go to work, figure out, what to do with their day. Is the world a little more dangerous? Yeah. Is it hard being like poor and getting up and fighting every day to to know what the next thing is? Yeah, of course all that like sucks, but we're still gonna play games, and we're still gonna like eat from street vendors, and we're still gonna go on dates and stuff. So insofar as it like captures all of that, and like without being like on the nose about it, it just captures it through like the design of the world and like all of the cool stuff going on in the background of the scene. That in itself, I thought, was really impressive. But then, yeah, it has a really, I will say, surprisingly nuanced story about a girl who I think basically, like, even though technically she has amnesia and it's about her, like, so quick summary, Alita is a cyborg found or whose head is found in a junkyard. Like she has a human brain. The rest of her body is completely artificial. At some point in the past, it was destroyed. This brilliant cyberneticist finds her head while he's scrounging for parts, puts it on a body that he already had available, which why that is a big part of the plot. And, she then, has to grapple with amnesia, but also really it's about her sort of like speed running, adolescence in a way, like, cause it's true, as they don't like hide it from you for very long. She is totally like a killer badass kung fu cyborg. Exactly what you would expect. But she also had like her journey to evolve and be at peace with that is basically stymied by the fact that like first, she has a relationship with her surrogate father who can't see her as anything other than a replacement for his daughter who passed away. And then later on, she has an attachment to a guy who like, is very much in love with her. But then the question is like, well, is she really going to throw all her own like ambitions and potential aside just to like make this guy's dreams come true? And so in the sense that it's all that, it's like, shockingly like feminist and humanist in like the way in which it approaches like her character development and arc. And then, in terms of like, the action and the actual set pieces, it has some pretty good action beats in it, all clear and well choreographed in a way that like Robert Rodriguez is actually better than a lot of Hollywood directors about. And then also, yes, you can't talk about the movie without talking about the ridiculous, subplot, which is that, all the stakes in the end come to be resolved around a game of what is essentially like, death metal roller derby, like a mix of like Death Race 2000 and Rollerball, where ostensibly there are rules, but as both Nick and I watching it wondered, it's like it does seem like you're basically allowed to murder everyone else in the race, and if you just do that, doesn't that mean you win automatically no matter like what your other skills are? So why isn't it just gladiatorial combat? But we won't worry about that.
It is confusing though when the announcer who seems to know the rules of the game is announcing all the plays seems completely unbothered, unsurprised when, people are being torn limb from limb. And he's like, whoa, that's not supposed to be part of the game. But it is, isn't it? Weird. I don't know. That game is still nonsense.
But fun. And I assume, again, a metaphor for the ways in which, like, poor cultures, and by poor, I just mean, like, impoverished, and colonial cultures often find, sort of ways of organizing their new identity and pride around various games that are like a cultural artifact of, ironically, their colonizing power. So I totally got all of the deeper socioeconomic and political implications of the game of Murder Ball. I just wasn't sure that the rules made much sense.
No. Which is fine. I mean, I just love that, they steal a weapon from one of these rollerball players, which basically turns out to be like the deadliest thing that's ever been released in the city. And I still can't get over that, like, you gave that to someone so they could be an effective assassin. But I mean, that's like if you had someone playing field hockey and you just gave them a machine gun. And it's just like, no, this is, it's technically not part of the game. But if everyone just gets blown away, that's what happens, right? There's no law that says you can't have a machine gun at the field hockey game. So, but still love it. I love it nonetheless.
Yeah, me too. Sorry. That was I spaced out there for a second. But yeah, great movie. Great recommendation by Nick Hyde. Sadly, it did not get greenlit for a sequel previously. Mr. Rodriguez has announced that he is still looking for funding for it, so who knows? Maybe one of these days.
Well, I saw an update that it was definitely still coming, but also trying to see how long ago the update was. That was 2 years ago. Apparently, James Cameron at the time was like, no, we're working on it. Trust us. Well, I guess, and the star and director. But like I said, 2 years ago. So who knows if anything has actually happened. However, I do want to say, I also saw this quote in here about the legacy where Robert Rodriguez said, the fans still didn't let anyone forget that they loved that movie. It's almost better than having a movie that does really well, but no one remembers it in 6 to 8 years. And I think he's done this. I don't know what makes a cult movie. Because also I explained to Kyle before we watched it, I don't think this is a perfect movie. I don't think this is like the best movie ever. I just think it's a movie that like really did dirty as far as, you know, being pretty good and then just getting zero traction. And I don't know. There's probably some reasons that are more obvious than others that these things happen. But yeah, I feel like he's managed to make an ideal cult movie in that it has somehow so little broad appeal, but where there is crossover between people who like action movies and anime, but also have soft hearts and love good dads. And it's a tricky market to hit, but he hit it, I think, really well.
Yeah, it's just got a lot, you know, going on. Like it really gives you a lot to, like I said, on the one hand, if you just watch it as like a, you know, a big dumb like robot combat movie, it arguably doesn't have quite enough action and is a little too long. But if you like watch it as like a, you know, a more realized sci-fi experience, then you're like, this is really interesting. I guess what I'm saying is you kind of have to be a connoisseur of film to appreciate Battle Angel Alita.
Well, and especially like appreciating what is effectively an unfinished product because it ends on a big frustrating, you know, I think it definitely holds its own as a movie, but that it was counting on a sequel and not resolving everything. Still pretty frustrating, you know? Like, so hopefully this next thing comes out, and if it never does, that'll be fine. I will still always look back on this one fondly. But yeah.
It would also be funny if, you know what the funniest thing I think that could possibly, well, I don't know the funniest thing ever, but one funny thing that could happen if they brought it back, they made it, and the only thing that they changed and no one commented on it is that the bad guy is now Mark Ruffalo.
Wait, which bad guy? Do you mean
the mysterious bad guy who lives in the clouds?
I'd support that. I'd like that. Because you know what? I've yet to hear anything bad about Mark Ruffalo as a person. And I haven't heard the specifics about Ed Norton being a bad person who does play Vector. But that apparently he's just such a dickhead to work with. I don't know. That's one of those things where it's like, I've never heard of him like committing any crime, but anytime he comes up as like a potential actor in projects that always comes alongside. Oh, and he's notoriously a bastard to work with. So, Mark Ruffalo, you should replace what's his bucket, Edward Norton and everything, in the most least problematic, unessential CGI swap that could occur. But I support it just because you probably, hey, you could retrofit yourself into that Incredible Hulk movie, Ruffalo, and I bet you'd make it a little better. I actually think that movie's not so bad, but I'm still pretty sure you'd improve it. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I just feel good. This is playing in my mind palace now. This is the Mark Ruffalo version of Incredible Hulk, where he gets to fight Tim Roth.